The university developed very quickly. It grew in size. Once it started admitting women, more women came. It was doing very well. In 1883, a new president was named, and his name was James Smart. Very good name for a president, Smart. And he was smart. And he was a man that was full of energy. My vision of him is someone who scurried around campus very quickly, maybe taking short steps, but always in a hurry. And he had ideas, and someone had to run behind him and catch those ideas and write them down so that they wouldn't be forgotten. He had many more ideas than he had money. He had very little money. He had very little money from the legislature. The tuition was almost free. So he was running really on almost nothing. But he never let his ideas and dreams go. He kept pursuing them, and he found a way to get them done. He became known at Purdue as the engineering university. Purdue was created as an agriculture and an engineering university, like all land grants. Agriculture lagged a little behind engineering catching on because the farmers in Indiana saw no reason to send their sons to Purdue University to learn how to farm. They could teach their sons how to farm. Of course, they couldn't. They were doing it wrong. They needed to learn how to apply science to a farm, and Purdue had to reach out to the agricultural community to convince them of what it could do for agriculture. Engineering caught on a little faster, and Smart advanced engineering quite a bit. He had this dream. They brought a Schenectady, which was a train engine here. They were doing research on railroad engine research. They were doing a lot of other research in engineering. They were becoming a little bit prominent and getting more famous every year for the work they were doing and the research they were doing. Smart had this dream of an engineering building, and not just an engineering building. He had a vision for an engineering building that was the best, maybe the best in the country, certainly the best in the West, which is what we were in those days. We were the West. And he tried to get money out of the General Assembly. It was way, way, way more money than the General Assembly was ever going to offer. They gave him a little bit, a fraction of that, and he built a small building. Then lo and behold, out of nowhere, a man named Amos Heavilon from Frankfort, Indiana, in about 1892, contacted the university and said he wanted to give the school money. He was a farmer. He had started from nothing. He was a bachelor his whole life. He lived very simply. He didn't spend money. He just bought farm after farm after farm after farm until he was quite wealthy. He got into banking. He got into real estate. He was elderly. He had no family of his own. He had nieces and nephews, and decided that he wanted to do something good with his money. And the statements in his diary said that I think the only way you can really help people is to help them to help themselves. And he decided to do this by giving money to the university. Well, Smart knew exactly what he was going to do with Heavilon's money. He was going to build the engineering building he had always dreamed of. And he announced this to a chapel meeting in University Hall, up at the top floor of University Hall. And as he announced it, he said, there's a man here with us who is going to give us the money to build this hall we've always dreamed of. And the students jumped up in the air and cheered and screamed. And Heavilon said it was one of the most emotional moments of his life. I think he was a man who had some clinical depression, but this really fulfilled him to see the response he was getting to his idea to give this gift. Well, they did build the building, and it was an incredible building, and it got a lot of national publicity in magazines and newspapers. It was getting attention. Purdue, out here in the West, in the far corners of the country, was getting attention as a school of engineering, and this hall was helping to lead the way. It wasn't just a building. They put a tower at the front of the building. There was no reason for that tower. I feel that the tower was an exclamation point to say, it was Smart's exclamation point to say, we have arrived, we are here. Notice us, pay attention to us. You're going to see some things happening here. They dedicated, Heavilon died, unfortunately, before it was finished. They dedicated it in January of 1894. It was a huge celebration. The governor was here. The legislators were here. Everyone came over here for a big program, a dedication program in the chapel at University Hall. That evening, they had a huge ball. All of Heavilon Hall was decorated. It was beautiful. Draperies. They had an orchestra in there. They danced. They had just a wonderful party that went deep, deep into the evening to celebrate this momentous moment at Purdue University. It was the moment at Purdue, the turning point. 4 days later, in the evening, there was an explosion in the boiler room, and then another explosion. Heavilon Hall caught fire.